There we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Art of Pricing. I am your host, Talia Lockard. We missed you guys last week. We were at Darm. We thought that we were going to be able to get on and still have a live show with everyone, and we were slammed. So that was not very easy for us to do. So today we have Andrew McConnell, our CEO. Andrew, any big thing, things you want to share that you took away from Darm?
Well, one big one was, just like everybody else watching this, I just knew you as a TV celebrity for the past, year or so. So it was amazing to actually be in Charleston together and get together in person. So that was absolutely fantastic. The second was just how much the awareness and deliberateness and desire for more sophisticated pricing and revenue management is growing. I think Amy, she always has a good pulse on the industry. And when she started this conference, was really just getting ahead of the curve of, hey, this isn't just another slipstream for something else. This needs its own forum for discussion. And so, good on Amy, High Note, and VRM Intel. And it was a great show.
Absolutely. And, I think that's a great takeaway, knowing that there's different segments also of data and revenue management, or tiers, I guess you can say, of people who want to learn different areas of the business, and not assuming just because you are an operator with a low amount of listings versus an operator with hundreds of listings, that the ones with hundreds are more sophisticated. So there was a lot of key takeaways. And I think, when we originally started revenue management in the beginning, we did it because we saw managers didn't have time. It's clear managers have less time than they had 2 years ago on their plate. So during, at the Data and Revenue Management Conference, Andrew had the opportunity to get on stage, have during a battleground, and show our automated rate tool. But last week was the announcement of our most exciting level of this tool, and in that you can actually sign on, use the tool for free until you decide to push your rates live to the website. So Andrew, I'm going to let you take it away with that.
Yeah, fantastic. Let me share my screen and you just let me know once you can see.
Got it.
Showing? Okay, fantastic. So
maybe make your screen a full screen.
Does that work?
Yes.
Okay. Now, before we jump in, I will just say with art, the best way to understand it isn't for me to sit here with a PowerPoint and list out a bunch of features and all the work you have to do. I think it's really to be in your shoes and say, how would I go perform pricing and revenue management in this? And this being a team of revenue managers who manage thousands of units all over the world, we really built this around what the task and the work of a revenue manager is. So really trying to make that more efficient. So with that being said, we'll jump in here. So the first thing you'll see is this tape chart, and you can click on any given day on any given property and manually update the price or the minimum stay. But what we're going to do is go onboard a property. So we'll say Fun in the Sun is a new property on my portfolio. And when I go and onboard it, there are a couple of things I want to check. So up here, you'll see the base rate. And what that is it's setting what roughly the average rate over the course of the year for this home should be. And this is a pretty large home. I think it's a 5 or 6 bedroom home. So we set that at $665. And then that base rate is applied to our data model specific to this market. So this market has a seasonality curve of when it has higher rates, when it has lower rates, weeknights versus weekends, holidays, events local to there. And that's where you see the spikiness coming into play. And so we're looking at the base rate. Am I comfortable with that? And am I comfortable with this curve? Now, this being a homeowner, I have to know what she wants out of this. So one thing she communicated to me is she has a minimum nightly rate of $500. So you see it's easy. I pop in the minimum rate, and then it shows me, does that impact my prices based on Art's recommendations? And you can see right now, no. Art picked up on, no, this property really shouldn't go for less than $500 a night. So that's a reaffirming data point there that's not a crazy minimum rate. This is another feature. It's more of an advanced feature. I wouldn't necessarily suggest you use it, but it is the specific property sensitivity or amplification you want to put. So An average property on the seasonality curve is what you see, is a normal property in this market. Now, you could have a 1-bedroom condo that's mostly business travelers and does not have the same kind of spikiness of some of your 3 or 4-bedroom homes. Or you could have a 12-bedroom castle that is very spiky. When it is peak season, there's almost limitless demand. And so you can really push that price up. But when it's off peak, there are not that many people that are booking a 12-bedroom castle. And so what this slider allows you to do is amplify that curve. It pushes the highs higher and the lows lower. And what you'll see is once I've done that, then that $500 minimum rate starts to come into play. So it's bottomed out some of the dates on this, but it's really significantly pushed up the rates on the peak times. And so there's no open question of how much or how little you want to do this. Really, for 90-95% of properties, this is not something you're going to want to play with. You're going to want to stick with the seasonality curve and your base rate for that property in that market.
I think that's a good area to kind of say it's like a test and learn opportunity for you, like an advanced setting, like play around and see what it says. But to get started, make sure you're starting more on the lower end rather than amplifying those numbers and affecting your strategy unnecessarily.
And that's one of the nice things about art is every single one of these changes you make, it's showing you what that change would do based on where it is today. So before you save any changes, you're not pushing any differences right now. You're able to see it before you say, yes, I want to go forward with this. Now, speaking of more advanced settings, so on the rate side, this being a larger property, I have a booking window, let's call it 90 to 120 days. So what I'm going to go do is on my premiums and discounts, start to bake in what I want to do on those outside of that booking window. So I want to put a 5% bump on my rates outside of 120 days. So if you're booking ahead of my booking window, I want to capture a premium. You must really want this property if you're booking before the rest of the market. Now, even on top of that, I may say outside of 240 days, you must be really desperate to get this home. And so I'm going to put a 10% bump even on top of that. So this is going to stack on top of the 5%. And you can see that rate continuing to push up to over 2,000 on some of these 90 rates. On the flip side, being a larger property, I know you have to coordinate groups and everything. So my booking window, if I start to get within it and I've missed that booking window, I get concerned. And so I can put discounts inside my booking window. So there are a couple ways to do it. What you'll see here is a 30% discount starting 60 days out. So, and I can make that gradual. So that toggle, what it does is it takes that 30% discount and then slowly ramps it over until today. So for 60 days, it'll lower that rate 0.5% each day for until we get to a 30% discount day before. Now I can look at that and say, "Whoa, I don't think I really want to come down 30%. That's a little aggressive. I'd rather come down less, but have a bigger window to book." So I can turn that gradual decrease off and put a 15% discount and then shorten the length to 45 days. So instead of 60, say, hey, I'll give it my full price a little bit longer and then with 45 days. Now, one thing to note on all of these, none of these are hard-coded rates right now. All of these are still going to be on ART's dynamic rates. So based on what's happening in the market, based on what the demand is, based on what the booking patterns are and how other people are pricing, that ART is still changing. This is just going to go on top or below of ART's recommended rates at every single step along the way. So I can say I'm pretty happy with the seasonality and the pricing curve here. I'm going to save these changes. Now, the next thing that we find really important with setting your revenue management strategy is your min stay settings. And so again, being a larger property, cleaning is relatively expensive. So I may have a default minimum stay of 3 nights, but the weekends are in very high demand. So I know I can push that up to 5 nights. And I, for every single one of my properties in ART, can define what I want to be a weekend. So is a weekend just Friday and Saturday? Is a weekend Thursday, Friday, and Saturday? For this one, I have set it as Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Then we can make this dynamic. So it's not just saying all the time, it's 5 nights for a weekend and 3 for a weeknight. When we start to get within my booking window, again, I can say, hey, I'm worried about filling it. I'm going to lower my minimum stay to 2 nights if we're within 45 days of check. And so that will dynamically change my minimum stay so people searching on listing sites or my own property can find it even if they're doing 2 nights. Same time outside the booking window, I can bump it up. I can say, look, again, if you're looking more than a year out, I know you really want this home. So I'm going to push you to a 7-night booking. And a couple other things I just want to touch on before we close this out. You can have gaps. So if I set a 3-night minimum stay, but people booked on the front end and the back end, and I have 2 floating nights, if it stayed at 3 nights, those nights could never get booked. So by saying, hey, we have a gap fill, we can go down to 2 nights if we have a gap, then I can make sure I have the greatest opportunity to fill that home. And another feature, I think we may be the only ones that have this in ART, is to be able to split those weekends. So yes, a weekend is defined as 5 nights, but if somebody did a booking Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and broke my weekend apart, it would go ahead and treat Friday and Saturday like a weeknight instead of a weekend, because that whole weekend block is no longer available. So ART can be smart on that. It knows how you want to treat it, and it's all in your hands, up to you how you want to do it.
Art is smart. That's all.
Yeah, very smart. So that's for that fun in the sun. That's 6-bedroom, 5+ bath. You feel really good there. Now here I'm going to show how to do it right in the tape chart. Say Beachy Keen. You see right now it has the little lightning bolt. You can see it's a dynamic rate set entirely based on ART. But that owner may have just called and said, I'm not seeing the bookings that I normally get this time of year. I'm really worried you're not filling the property. So what I may want to do to keep her happy is I can go ahead and take that whole week and I can drive across for dates. I can drag down for multiple properties. And is this showing, or is it showing the video?
It actually, it was showing. Whenever you hit play, this little thing on the side goes away.
Okay. So I'll drag, and for that week, a 15% update my minimum stay. So it went from 2 nights to 1 night. So it'll show up anytime anybody searches anything. And again, on top of ART's dynamic rates, it's going to put a 15% discount. So the property may be worth more, but I really want to ensure I'm getting these bookings. So to keep that owner happy, I'm going to do that. Now, I'm just going to go back one thing. So that's just keeping the owner happy right now. Another thing is, say I have an event that's going to impact one of my properties that I heard about. So I can go up here in the search bar. This event is going to be in Emerald is the building. So I can search for that. It goes ahead and it filters for my Emerald buildings. And the event is in June of 2000. So very quickly, you can jump forward to June of 22 just for these properties. And that week, I now know there's a new event. And it's so far ahead, I want to make sure I make as much as possible in that window. So I can go ahead on top again of ART's dynamic rates and put a 20% premium on top of whatever ART's suggesting and up my minimum stay. It doesn't have to go down. You can see these are defaulted to 2. I can up that to 4 nights. So I can say, if anybody just saw this event, they really want to lock in a great property, I'm going to make sure when they come to me, I'm getting a real premium for that period of time. Now, another way to do this is you can create tags. So whether it's by a building, by an owner name, whatever you want, you can create tags in ART. So let's say I have another new owner who has 6 properties she just brought on with me in Sand Dune Tower. So I created a tag called Sand Dune Tower. I'm going to go in and set the rate strategy for these 6 properties. Now, I'm pretty happy in general with how ART is set up for it, but I want to ramp this property as quickly as possible. I want to get as many early bookings and make sure they're really showing up well on the search results, keeping that owner happy. So what I do is I filtered on just these 6 properties. Over here, I can go set what window. So I'm going to say for the next 30 days, for the first month this property is on my program, I'm going to go ahead and put a discount onto ART's suggested rates. So it took 31 days, and I'm going to put a 10% discount on what ART would normally say. So I know this property is worth more than this, but I want to make sure it's always showing first and getting those early bookings, because I know those great reviews are going to help. I could also say, you know, I want the 10% discount for weeknights, but for weekends, I can get the full rate. So let me carve out weekends. And so over that month, instead of all 31 nights, it's just the 17 that are what I define as weeknights. And only the 10% discount, have it apply on those weeknights, keep the full rate because I'm pretty sure we have nearly 100% occupancy on the weekends. No reason to give that money up. And then you can just save that out. And what it'll show, again, is you're within 10%, you're a little low on what Art would recommend, as we know, because we put a 10% discount. But again, it'll float and be dynamic based on changes in the market, in demand, and pricing from the competitors. Now, one thing you mentioned is, yes, now with Art, you can access all of this entirely for free. You can access the data models, you can access the base rate suggestions, you can access the min stay requirements and rate settings. And you do that by going to rented.com and you just create a free account. You don't need any payment information, anything like that. You just go, put your company name, what PMS you're using. And as long as you have your property on Airbnb, any property, you can paste a single property listing ID or your host URL. And Art will pull in the properties you have under that host ID. And then once you pull that in, what Art will show you is the suggested base rate for each of those properties. So, hey, we've looked at properties just like this with these kinds of amenities. We think it's in this range, but you can drag that up or down. And then once you're comfortable with how your base rates are set, you look at the curve, make sure the seasonality is how you want it. Then you can either skip and go straight to the rate settings chart, or you can do this one by one on this page. So if you scroll back up, you'll see, you just say, I want to skip this step. I don't want to deal with this right now. It's pulled in your 34 listings. We only did the base rate on one. So once we log in, you'll see the base rates across. And I can go in, again, here, the rate settings, the minimum stay settings, and play with that. And it's only once you are ready to start pushing your rates live to your site, to your PMS, to Airbnb or Vrbo, that you need to add in any payment information. And then you can turn on or off every single property on a per property basis. So you decide which ones you want to use Art for and which ones you don't.
Nice. Well, thanks, Andrew. That was great. I admittedly missed this during DARM and selfishly wanted to see it myself, and I got it for everybody at the same time. So this was really awesome. I love it. So we got after Andrew's battleground demo at DARM, we had a swarm of people want to come talk to our team. And we were basically hearing two sets of, everyone wanted to hear two things. It's kind of a funny story. People would walk up to the booth. I would start to give my normal sales pitch. And they're like, no. I don't need that. Andrew did everything. I just have some questions. And so the questions were, where do we get our data from, and why did it seem so easy? Like, a lot of people were like, the ease of use. So, whichever one you want to go for first with that one.
Yeah, let's start with the data first, because I think that is, again, it was the data and revenue management conference,
right?
A big part of it. And there are numerous sources that go into this. One is we are looking at literally millions and millions of listings every single day, multiple times a day, to get their rates and how they're booking. And then on top of that, we're layering in data science to really clean that up, because we know a block or an owner hold is not the same as a booking at full nightly rate. And so really cleaning that up across those millions and millions of listings. On top of that, we have a partnership with Key Data Dashboard. So we have source data for, again, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of properties, mostly in the US for those, that allow us to even get smarter. So we have machine learning within the model, and then we have machine learning with the actual data that we're getting from Key Data. And then I think, as we touched on before, our revenue management team internally is managing thousands of properties across the world using Art. And so on top of the machine learning, we have human learning that's looking at this and saying, hey, here's what's working, here's not, there's some little quirks here. So we're constantly making each of these smarter, from increasing the data set, but also in how we're looking at the performance of those data models over time. And is this rate suggestion working? Is it making you more money or not? And so adjusting. Mm-hmm. Now, the question on ease of use. This is something that I probably
So sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot going on your computer. this is something I probably overquote, but Sarah Bradford at the last VRMA International in New Orleans before the world closed, had a comment on stage about, I got into this business to be a property manager, to be a vacation rental manager, and I spend all of my day as a technology manager. This is not what I signed up for. This is not what I want. And I think a lot of people, especially if you're not in the industry, you come to it from this tech, I'm a Silicon Valley person, and you think it's all about bells and whistles and loading features and shipping more and more and more. And we come at it from a very different mindset, right? We were property managers. I have a property management company in Bermuda. You were at Home Away, right? We've been in the industry. We have people, whatever company you're with, and we're revenue managers. We're ones actually in pricing properties using these different pricing tools or manually. And so instead of loading up features, we look at it and saying, what am I trying to achieve with my revenue management strategy? What am I trying to achieve in terms of driving as much revenue from this property as possible? And so by coming at it from the end result, instead of just loading a bunch of bells and whistles and features, we bake it in to how art works. You don't have to go layer in a ton if you set it up to work properly in the first place. So it's so easy because we made it that way. We know what you want to do. And so it's baked in. And for those things that you say, hey, I kind of want to manually override this thing and that thing, we just made it really intuitive and simple to be able to do it, because we know it's not important to have 1,000 things that you don't really need, but you're curious about. You'd rather have the 5 things you really need and make those really easy to use, because you have enough on your plate. You want to keep it simple, like simply rent it. Just keep it simple. Keep my properties filled with the most money as possible coming into me and my owners. That's what art does.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just like that is like the best way. Like it's just, we're asking ourselves and even challenging our partners that we've been talking to ask themselves, when we talk to each other, it's art can't do this. And let's change that question a little bit, right? How can art do this? And we always have an answer of solving for that solution. So it's like just kind of changing the mindset with an easier way. And I have to say, that's how our tech team helped us build the tool, because I mean, having imagined how many revenue managers and people in property managers in our team, everyone has always done this in different ways. So everyone wanted to see things differently. So our tech team was really good at asking those questions to be like solving that problem with just a minimal amount of features in there.
Yeah. So this may be a total silly story, non sequitur, but my dad, he had a friend with an old VW bug. And when they would drive on the highway, he would just have a brick and he would put it on the accelerator, because the bug could only get up to 60 anyway. And it's like, okay, this we go. And you say, hey, I want to be able to adjust it. So I want a brick. Someone's coming to you for a feature. And they say, I want a brick that I can adjust how much it tilts and et cetera. And the tech team says, why don't we just build cruise control where you just set the speed you want your car to stay at? You're like, oh, wow, that seems way better than this tilting brick. Like, yeah, it is. So when someone comes to us saying, hey, I want X, you say, well, okay, instead of X, tell me, what are you trying to achieve? What is the objective with that? And they describe and say, oh, well, let me show you how art does that. Because it may be something that just art automatically does. It may be something that's, oh, you just tweak this one little thing. But it really is trying to get back to, why do you want to do the thing? Mm-hmm. What are you trying to accomplish? And then how do we best and most effectively enable you to do that in an efficient way so you're not wasting all your time?
Love that. And one of the last questions I'm going to ask you, we have tons of questions, or always got tons of questions, and I try to like bring them down a little bit from everything I heard at the conferences. How are our models different from others?
Yeah, so, I think especially prior to COVID, a lot of the people coming in were very historic pricing based, right? So they're looking at what were rates in the past and then extrapolating based on that. And if you've done anything in financial management or advice, they always say past performance is no indication of future performance, future success. And so we looked at it and said, well, it doesn't really matter what it did in the past. Like that matters a little. And so we want to know what it did. But what really matters is, what does it look like today? And so ours is really based on demand. How is the market pricing today? How is the market booking today? And thus, what do you need to do today based on today? not, hey, I'm going to suggest you do this thing today because of what happened 3 years ago. We just didn't think, and COVID very, very strongly proved this, right? That is the best or most effective way to do pricing when it came to vacation rentals or really anything else.
And it really is, right? Real estate just comes to my mind. I live in Austin, Texas, where real estate's crazy. And I mean, it's crazy in a lot of places right now. But if we were to consider historical factors of what I paid for my house 2 years ago from what it's going for today, it's absurd. Absurd difference that's in there. So like knowing what's happening today, and I have to say, I got an email from someone yesterday who I've been talking to, like kind of pre-freemium coming out, and everything. And she's just like, I love when models take in mind demand, how much inventory is left in the booking window. That's what you do, right? And I was like, yes, exactly what we do.
I mean, to that point, right? Like Kevin, who leads our revenue management team, bought a property in the Smoky Mountains, and less than 2 years later, maybe less than 18 months later, basically double, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if you had a historic looking data model that looked at real estate prices for the last 100 years and said, oh, on average, real estate prices go up 3% each year. And so that thing told Kevin, you should sell it for 3% more than you bought it for. How much money would he have lost? As opposed to looking at what is the market today? What is demand today? And that's really what art does.
Yeah.
Is looking at today. What is relevant today in terms of driving your revenue and your performance in your business?
Absolutely. This is so informational. We talk all the time. We do this. I wrote down a whole bunch of notes for your demo because I like the way that you say it, but we have 3 minutes left. I want to just, do you have any like key takeaways, whether it be revenue management conference or just where we are in the industry right now, or booking pace, things we're hearing, anything you'd like to share?
Now, there's a bunch on booking pace that I definitely am not going to be able to cover in 3 minutes. I know it's, especially for people watching this right now, it's a big concern in the industry. The more meta point that I would talk about right now, whether it's revenue management, whether it's coming back from a conference, is so many times people are overwhelmed. They look at all the things I could be doing, all the things I should be doing. And because I can't do it all, it becomes an excuse not to do anything. And I get frozen. And so I encourage people at every conference, anytime you see something new and exciting, just pick something. Just pick one thing, and you're way better off doing one thing and say, look, I get there were 900 things, but I'm only going to do this one, than looking at the 900 things, writing them all down, and then doing nothing. Just pick something and get started. And then if that's a success or not, you can move to the next thing. But just start with something, because you're never going to grow and improve if you stay operating how you're doing today. There's so much more you could be doing, but just start with that first step.
If everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. And you can't, if you're not really quite sure how to do that, like Andrew's saying, picking that one thing, focus on that one thing, let it finish, and then go from there. I mean, that's the best way for you to do that. But yeah, if anyone has, wants, there'll be a live recording of this on our LinkedIn Live page. We'll also probably do some edits, so it's actually just the actual demo part that we'll send out to everybody. If you have questions about freemium, our models, our team, anything, feel free to reach out to salesteam@rented.com. Or I'm assuming most of you on here know how to contact me. Feel free to LinkedIn message me or Andrew. We're here to chat with you too. But thank you so much, Andrew, for your time today and everyone else's time. And we are excited about continued growth in the industry.
It was fantastic. Thanks, Talia.
Thanks. Bye.